Hello, welcome to a new episode of Roops and Arrays. My name is Mariko, also known as Kosamali on the internet, pretty much everywhere. Welcome to my show about mostly knitting, but also all kinds of fiber arts. Recently, I expanded my horizon to spinning. I am recording this from my knitting/craft studio in Ridgewood in New York City. And if you're curious about what I actually do in this knitting studio, this is my part-time studio. I have another day job working at a big corporation, and then I come here at night and weekends to do my hobby crafts. So I recently made a blog following, I think, 5 days of what I do in the studio. So if you're curious, do check that out. But let's start. This is a show about knitting. So let's start with my knitting projects. Let's start with finished objects, and I have a lot of them here. So let's start with the socks. Now, if you've been seeing another episodes, you know this one. I've been working on this. Last week, I talked about how I made mistake in this pattern where this is the correct way of doing increases or decreases every other row. And then this first one that I made is a mistake of doing decreases every row. I decided to just go with mistake and make house socks, I guess, because as I talked last week, this here cuff, it's too tight to wear, so it's gonna be like scrunched up floppy socks anyway. And then interesting happened. So two things. I knit this one first and then this one second. I don't know if you can see in the screen, but this one is significantly bigger and floppy than the first one. So my gauge is significantly different. And I'm not sure, maybe it's a psychological thing. So this one I knit in a 3-day intensive heavy discussion meeting week while I was listening to those conversations. So this is like really tight gauge. This one, on the other hand, I came home and basically it was TV knitting. Like while I watched some shows on YouTube or Netflix, I put on and gauge is loose. So this was going to be a house socks no matter what. But I finished it. Again, the yarn is Madeline Tosh sock, I think. Colorway is Viola. Then this one I also talked about last week. If you've seen the episode 1, it's actually second episode, but it's episode 1 because I did this like quirky thing that like I do computer programming stuff at day job, and number starts with 0 in computer world. So I called the first episode 0, and then second episode is episode 1, and now I'm regretting the choice that I made. Anyway, so last week I talked about the sweater where I had basically everything done except seaming on the side. So I ended up hand seaming the side, and I finished it. Again, as I talked about, this is 100% alpaca wool that I got in Argyle in Brooklyn. And I took a cable pattern from, and I think it's list pod pattern. And I did that, follow the pattern from here. And then I basically did a free form of increasing and spreading to the arm and everything. Because I didn't really want to do the math of doing the gauge and everything for the original pattern. Original pattern is written for fingerling weight, and this is sport weight. So I needed to do math, but I opted out of just taking parts of the cable and doing freehand myself. So this is very nice. I wore them already 3 times. And as I talked about, this is half hand knit and half machine knit. And I recently saw this another knitting show talking about how knitting machine, or in this case circular sock machine, which is a type of knitting machine that creates a socks really fast, is fake knitting. I don't know. I was discussing this with my friend, and I don't consider myself using knitting machine as a fake knitting because it's completely different kind of craft. Like there was a whole another set of vocabularies and whole another set of stitches and techniques that you need to learn to do machine knit, even though it creates a same fabric or outcome, I guess. So yeah, this was knit from here to here hand knit, and then from here downwards, and the sleeves all in machine knit. And I'm very proud of how I blended those two really well in gauge. And maybe in a future episode, I talk about how to match the gauge of my hand knitted sweater and the machine knit sweater. But yeah, I like it. And now, this was my first time combining hand knit and machine knit. Now that this is done, I'm very tempted to cast on many other sweaters that I really like the simple pattern and simple fabric of the stockinette stitch, but I so not into knitting stockinette stitch for like weeks. So this opened up new horizon for me. I might make more sweaters this season. So that's finished object number 2. And then let's start with this one. So last week I talked about the yarn that I dyed, which I tried to match my code editor and tried to kind of like create a knitting fabric that looks like code that I write. Again, I am a computer programmer on my day job. So out of that yarn, I finished the hat. So here's a hat that I made. It's kind of, I don't have a hat blocker, so it's kind of hard to show you. But you can see I took a free pattern on Library socket hat, and I completely knit this in machine. So if you see the back side of it, you see the seam. So I knit ribs in machine knit and then knit with the flat knit to around here. And then I switched to hand knit and did the decreasing on the top by hand. So yeah, and then once that's done, I just seam the size to make one hat. And yeah, if you're curious of how I made, this project is in my vlog that I uploaded last week, from start to finish of how I did it. In terms of the results that I was going for, I was going for how it looked like on my code editor, and it definitely ended up being too busy. It's way too many colors, and it also created this like weird color pooling. So again, I might insert an image here, but it almost started doing this like argyle pattern of like zigzag pattern, which gave me another idea to do a technique called planned pooling. So pooling is like, this is like good example. Pooling is, oh, I touched the microphone. So pooling is a phenomenon, I guess, happens in yarn where the one color bunched up to one corner and then the other color bunched up to the other corner. And depending on how the yarn is dyed, the type of yarn that does a lot of pooling and type of yarn that does not do pooling. But somehow the way I dyed it created this like interesting diagonal pattern, which sometimes in crochet world mainly known as planned pooling. And what planned pooling is, basically you get a certain type of yarn that has like 3-4 colors repeating, and then you intentionally count the stitches so that you create stripe or argyle or zigzag or something. So basically, without doing the color work of switching the color yarns, you just knit one yarn, but be able to create this colored pattern. So this gave me an idea to dye more yarn that is suited for planned pooling and possibly make planned pulling where I design the pulled pattern first and then dye it according to so basically like I designed the fabric first and then deconstructing yarn form in order to match the color sequence on the yarn. I have idea bluing of how to do this, and that will be my Christmas holiday project for dyeing new yarns and trying out the fabric. So that's second finished object, or actually third finished object. Then I finished a cowl. So let me get this right. I wrote down the name of this pattern. Okay, I got it. So it's called Zweig pattern by, I think, Solda Teague. I don't know, I might be completely butchering designer's name. But this is a pattern that I found on Ravelry. I purchased a pattern and then knit them out of Daruma Yarns Geek. Yeah, if you're curious about this yarn, I talked about this again on last episode about this interesting yarn that has orange core and some alpaca and wool fluff around it. So I gauge swatched this yarn and realized that the beauty of this orange yarn, the core, comes out more in garter stitch, well, like pearl bump. So I kind of searched for Ravelry and just looked for a pattern that had a lot of pearl bump or garter stitch. So this one, as you can see, start with garter stitch with a little bit of like a chevron-y thing, and then tiny bit of stockinette stitch, and then goes into this hexagonal pattern on the garter stitch, and then repeats it back to the top. And it's wonderful. It's really warm. It has a alpaca in it, and very, very happy with how this turned out. So that's my last finished object. Right. Let's talk about works in progress. Because I finished 2 works in progress projects and then started one and finished one project, I haven't made much dent in another project that I was working on. But here's a stellate shawl that I talked about in the first episode, the episode 0. This is a pattern by Julie Knits and Palace called stellate shawl. It's a half pie shawl with garter stitch and slip stitch pattern from a latest Pom Pom magazine issue. I don't know if you can tell any difference, but it's definitely getting bigger than how it was last time I talked about. Last time I finished until here, and then I did another whole section to here. So now this is the last row of this slip stitch pattern, and then after this row I can move on to brioche. So yeah, very excited. I wanted to finish this by Christmas. I don't think that's gonna happen given Christmas is 4 days, 5 days, but it's definitely making progress, and I will finish this. I will not put it down. Hopefully. I have a tendency to kind of like pause the projects and then do not pick them up for like a month, but I do want to wear this shawl, so I'll do that. And then since I finished the sock, I started new one. Here's a tiny 1/2 of the toe. I'm doing this toe up this time. I am using a yarn from Hedgehog Fibers, Callaway Cheeky, which is this pink and yellow and blue speckle, very, very bright, funky yarn. This is actually a gift knit. My partner, Luke, chose this one when we went to a yarn store together. I told him, like, just choose whatever the color you want, and this is the one he chose. So I am knitting a sock for him. Well, not a sock, a pair of socks for him. Yeah, I cast it on last night, made a toe increase, and then put it down. But then this 2-inch is this week, today, on the way to office, back from office and in meetings, and it's interesting. So, my team knows that I'm obsessed with knitting, and I recently introduced to my team that I do knit in meetings. Like I just one team meeting, I just brought in my knitting, and without making any statement, I just started knitting in front and center of the meeting, and then I don't know, nobody made a fuss about it. However, one person in the team actually knits, and apparently on her team, they measure efficiency of meeting by how many inches they knit and meeting. So today I was knitting this in a meeting, and meeting kind of ended fast because it was like end of year and everybody was on holiday. But once all the business was done, she just like mentioned to me, "That's a good progress on the knitting." So yeah, this is knitting up really fast. This is my second sock using 9-inch circular, and I love it. So I have done 3 pairs of socks, maybe. The first one I did was magic loop 2 at a time, and I did not really enjoy it. It's actually 2 pairs of socks, really. I did not really enjoy it. And then this one, the second pair, I did it with 9-inch circular from calf down. And this time I am doing a magic loop, 1 at a time magic loop toe, and then once toe is done, 9-inch circular. And this seems to be working for me. This is the fastest knit that I'm doing, I guess, in terms of sock knitting. And I really like toe up socks than calf down. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully I finish this within a week. But I don't know. If I focus on this for next 3-4 days, I can totally finish this by Christmas and this be Christmas gift. But I also want to work on Stelly Show, so not sure if it happens or not. But even if not, this is going to my partner. So those are 2 whips that I have. And amazingly, I only have 3 whips now. So I have Stelly Show, I have that sock that I'm knitting, and then I have 1 cardigan that I kind of paused 3 months ago and kind of lost steams on it. But yeah, and I am making myself not cast on any new project aside from like vanilla sock knitting until I finish that cardigan that I haven't touched for a month. I don't know. I kind of want to finish what I started in 2017. Hopefully before 2018, but I don't think that's gonna happen. But you know, before casting on, I have a lot of things I want to cast on. I have like all of the plans for all of these yarns. But before starting doing that, I'm gonna finish these 3. And I'll talk about it in here, and it'll be great. Alright, so let's talk about acquisitions. And I have very exciting acquisition to talk about. If you've seen the studio vlog that I uploaded last week, you already know this. But I bought a spinning wheel. So let me grab that from floor. Here is my spinning wheel. I decided to buy a polywork from Spinolution. I did a whole bunch of research, meaning I watched a lot of YouTube video about good first timers spinning wheel, but I had 2 constraints. I was not willing to pay $1,000. I was looking for more about up to $600 was my maximum. Also, this studio is very small, so the form factor was very important. Smaller, the better. A lot of treble spinner that is smaller is great, but because they are engineered to be small, they're expensive. This one, however, is a $399 for the basic set. And it's designed for kids to be able to use it. Like plenty of adults use it, but this is designed for kids to use it. So it's already small in form factor, and I absolutely love it. I got this on Saturday. I made my partner Luke drove me to Connecticut to Madison Wool, who is a distributor of this one. And then I picked it up. I unpacked it on Saturday. I spin the Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday today. And every day I spin it and practicing it. So this is actually my first full 4-ounce or 100 grams full bobbin of 2-ply yarn that I just finished. I picked up a 200 grams or 8 ounce of just wool loaving. It just said American wool. It didn't say anything about the brand or the type of sheep. But it was pretty cheap, and I just picked it up as a practice because I have never spun on spinning wheel. And I'm just telling myself that before do any fancy yarn or any start new project, I'm gonna finish that 8 ounce as a practice. So this one I was trying to make a DK weight yarn and 2-ply it. I have another 4-ounce fiber still left and planning to make a sport or hopefully fingering weight yarn. So basically this one, I'm getting quite good at spinning single for DK weight, 2-ply DK weight, but still kind of not so great spinning for thinner singles to make sport or fingering weight. So that's my plan for another Christmas holiday project. So because I went to Madison Wool, I also picked up a kind of my goal fiber once I know how to spin and I can spin consistently. I picked up a Hobble de Hoy art bat, I guess. So these are very beautiful yellow and magenta mix of fiber. It is a merino wool, bamboo silk, camel, sally silk, and sparkle. So it's, I don't know, I really like the color. And this, I have a dream of spinning it really thin so that I can make, sorry about the sound, that I can make a really fine yarn and use it in shawl or something. So this is my goal yarn. And then another acquisition, I guess. So this is not from Madison Wool, but I ordered it from websyarn.com. These yarns, which is Malabrigo Makita colorway eggplant. So it says eggplant, but it's very, very gray, like a purple undertone gray. And it's in fingering weight singles, and there's 3 skein of them. And this is one of my plan for New Year, where I want to cast on a Zweig sweater from Caitlin Hunter. I know a lot of people are knitting right now. I think knit-along is happening at some Ravelry community. It feels like every knitter Instagram that I watch, everybody's knitting Zweig sweater. But I want to knit them. Originally, I had this yarn in mind. So Zweig is a sweater where basically in the yoke part there is a lace with different color, and then the other part is very semi-solid tonal color. So I bought these thinking that I would use this one from Stash, which is a dye house yarn by Serial Knitters. And the colorway is Birthday Sprinkle Surprise. And I picked this up this summer when I was in Seattle. This was actually my first batch of purchasing hand-dyed luxury or indie dyed yarn. My first time. Before that, I was pretty much like yarn.com webs, but like cheap webs and nitpicks. But this year I ventured out to hand-dyed yarn, and this was the first one I bought. Basically the first one. I bought 2 other hedgehog fibers, but yeah. So I had this in my stash for quite a while, and I thought I would use this in my Zweig sweater. When I bought the other yarn to see how it's gonna look like, I'm actually not sure if this combination is right, which made me to buy another skein of yarn, which is in here. So I wasn't really sure about this color combination. Don't get me wrong, I'm still in love with this skein of yarn. However, I wasn't really sure with the combination. So I went to Soho and bought a Manos Antique Lace colorway yarn, which is in their Fino base, which is extra fine merino plus silk. So this one called Antique Lace, and basically it's a very light gray and brown, I don't know, gradation, tonal skein. And it goes, in my opinion, really well with this eggplant color. I think the undertone of the purple in this eggplant colorway goes really well with the Manos Antique Lace. So these are my purchase. I am not casting on until I finish all of my work in progress. But in New Year, I'm going to cast on Zweig sweater and knit them out of these. It will be challenging because I've never really hand knit a fingering weight yarn sweater. I've done fingering weight sweater like this one, but I've only done it in knitting machine. So it will be challenging for me to finish, but I really want Zweig sweater. Alright, I think that's it for this week. I think this will be my last kind of a chatty episode for 2017, and next week I want to kind of do another follow me around in studio type of thing. I do want to document my process in trying to make this planned pulling yarn, and I have some ideas to combine my day job, which is programming, to crafty yarn stuff. So I think that would be interesting. I also have a archive stock footage that I found from this summer when I did another kind of like digital closing a crafty project, which I never edited and released. So over the Christmas break, I think I'm going to edit those and release. So if I don't see you until next week, have a great holiday and have a great new year, and see you back in 2017. Bye!